why does grammar teaching get a bad press? Because I think it does. I think, you know, language teachers often shy away from it and we feel a little bit nervous about it. So I'd like to look at this to start with. And I think, you know, this is part of the reason, is that it's seen as boring, it's seen as very traditional. Do we need to teach anything at all? Well, Stephen Krashen in the 70s came up with what effectively I think was a bit of a thought experiment. He didn't seem to have an awful lot of evidence to base this on, except for his own personal experience. He learnt languages in school, as many of us did, and I hold up my hand very high. I learnt French and hated it and failed. I learnt Spanish and hated it and got a CSE, and you know, really was not inspired by languages at all in school because we didn't use them. I saw no point in them. We conjugated verbs. And he had a similar experience and didn't learn much. Came to Europe, he's American, came to Europe and learned a language in situ and was, you know, completely overwhelmed by this experience. So really based this on then his input hypothesis, which he said that language acquisition, and still says actually, he's still around and kicking very much, it does not require extensive use of conscious grammar rules. So you don't need to teach people grammar particularly, specifically. He said that all you really need is meaningful interaction in the target language. You've just got to find out what speakers are concerned with, not worry about the form, not worry about the grammar, but just with the communication, with the messages they're conveying and understanding. But I think the problem with doing that as a sole approach, if we're just going to teach chunks of language and hope that they'll acquire the grammar from these bigger chunks, the problem is that they don't get enough exposure. You have to learn an awful lot of these chunks in order to start getting the rules from them. So I think, you know, whilst this is certainly important, please don't go away thinking that I'm saying this isn't important. It's hugely important, but it's not enough alone, I think. So what kind of evidence have we got then to support grammar teaching? I'm obviously working down that route that I'm saying, yes, it is important, but what kind of evidence have we got to support that? Well, a meta-analysis, I don't know how many of you might know what that means, I didn't until quite recently, if that makes you feel any better, is where a researcher will go into back work of a lot of other research and pull out research in a particular area to sort of have an overview of that. And there have been several meta-analyses of grammatical work, grammatical research, work on learning grammar. So there's one, Norris and Otiega in 2000. They looked at a whole lot of back research and they concluded that explicit grammar teaching is better than no explicit grammar teaching, that people do learn from explicit teaching. And this is interesting, I think, that the effects of that are durable. They don't, you know, you don't teach it today, we test it today, they remember it, hooray. They go away next week and they come back and they haven't remembered it anymore. That's not the case, that generally it is durable. There are Gass and Selenka, again, they reviewed the literature and they concluded that, and this is interesting again, I think after early childhood, learning complex forms, learning complex grammatical forms does require not just processing meaningful input, but also some kind of explicit focus on grammar. Any other reasons to teach grammar then? So if we've looked at the dry research and that's fair enough, but you think, well, it's just in one particular very small context. And but I think there are other reasons. A lot of experts, this is Rod Ellis, lots of sort of well-renowned experts consider that it is useful and helpful and necessary. So he says this, pretty much all course books are based on it, is the truth. The other thing I think that's important is learners' expectations. Learners love grammar. They really love it. You tell, what do you want to learn? Grammar is very often number one. I'd just like to say, just in case anybody's misunderstanding me, that what I am not saying is that grammar is the most important thing. Listen very carefully. I don't think it is. if you give me the choice between only comprehensible input and only grammar, I'm definitely over here with Krashen. But it is an important part of what we do, that learners will go further, faster, with some explicit help and some explicit focus on grammar.